that we're here today to talk about the crucial role of women in our democracy. And I could not think of a better guest for this conversation, one that I've been wanting to have for a long time, than one of the most powerful women in our democracy today, Nancy Pelosi, Speaker Emerita of the U.S. House. Serving as U.S. Representative for over 30 years, Speaker Emerita Pelosi is a leading voice on women's leadership and politics, with a wealth of knowledge about how to get women elected and how to make sure that they have their voices heard when they step into the halls of Congress. I am so excited to have you here with us today. Everybody, please join me in welcoming Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi.
For the invitation to be here, for the leadership of 19th, and for all of you coming together to give me so much hope just seeing all of these women here today who made a decision about women in democracy. I want to acknowledge my Chief of Staff, Terry McCullough. Terry's right there. Terry was the first woman Chief of Staff to Speaker of the House. When I was Speaker though, Terry was the Chief of Staff. I mean, she was the highest ranking staff person on Capitol Hill, a woman.
Yes. Both of y'all. Okay, well, let's get started, Speaker Pelosi. You have been working in Congress for over 30 years, and when you first took office, there were 25 women in Congress total. Today, there are over 151 women. What has that been like, witnessing that change over time, and has the increase in women representatives changed the way that Congress runs?
Well, it was, when I was there, it was 23 in the House, the other two in the Senate. So in the House, it was 23. 12 Democrats, 11 Republicans, out of 435 people.
Wow.
You must be kidding. So it was like, what? Imagine, 435, 23 of them women. Now in the House, on the Democratic side, we went from 12 to 94. So when people talk about the percentage of women in the Congress, it's still not enough. But we have done 45% of our caucus are women. 70% of our caucus are women, people of color, LGBTQ. That's a remarkable thing for a legislative body.
Yeah.
So it makes a difference in the policy, there's no question about it. But anyway, got there and see, look around, think, they must be kidding, this is ridiculous. It's all a decision. We just made a decision that we would have more women. And that meant outreach, that meant mentoring, it meant fundraising and all the rest of that to make sure that women saw the opportunity. And we grew fat, good, but we're never satisfied. We always want more. But elections were the path. Elections were the path. And this is not for the faint of heart. You get out there, you become a target. I mean, people say to me, I would run except I don't think I can take the heat that you take. I said, well, that's their problem. That's not your problem. It's really important. So when you talk about women in democracy, it's exciting. To me, it's like music to my ears, because this is what is necessary for our country, which I'm sure we'll be talking about, but I'll follow your path.
Absolutely. No, I mean, and I also think, so many of those barriers that were there, maybe when somebody like you started, we see so many people, young moms, that are out here running for Congress. They're not waiting, until their children are maybe older, or waiting for, when might be the right time. They're jumping in, they're getting involved so much sooner. You served along so many other trailblazing women as well. I'm also thinking about the late Senator Dianne Feinstein. What was it like working with her, and what did you see change during her time in office?
Well, Senator Feinstein came after I did to the Congress, so she went to the Senate about 6 years later. She was a remarkable, iconic woman. She had been the mayor under difficult circumstances coming into office, and she used that experience and the challenge that she faced to help others. So it was wonderful. We were neighbors, we were friends. my daughter, since she was a little girl, loved Diane. Our kids used to tease her and say, if Mommy and Diane are against each other, you'd probably be for Diane. And Diane's daughter would say, don't worry, but I'll be for you. So we're all close friends, but really a very special person. That's why toward the end of her life, I wanted to be sure she was treated with the dignity that she deserved. And again, she was quite remarkable. But when I went again, 11 other women on the House side. Barbara Boxer was one of them.
Yeah.
Remarkable. She was there about a year or two before I was, no, more like 2 before I was. And she really was a mentor to me in so many ways about policy and this or that and how things happen.
What did that mentorship mean to you? I mean, to have somebody to kind of help you, show you the ropes.
Well, we sort of mentored each other, but it was like, well, let me just some of the atmospheres. When we were there in the beginning, the guys, thought, no, that's nice. Then our numbers grew, it was like, what's going on now? And then if we would say, let's all meet in the well and wear green that day, they'd be, oh my God, what are they up to next? So it went from nice, pat on the head to what's going on here, something different is happening. And women in Congress have made a tremendous difference. I know one thing for sure, there would be no woman speaker if we didn't have many more women in Congress, because the guys were not particularly, ready to step aside. Let me just tell you my story so it might relate to something you might have in your experience. I never intended to run for Congress, never, not the faintest inclination, temptation, nothing. I loved politics, I loved policy, and I was volunteering politics as the chair of the California Democratic Party to promote others, be behind the scenes, to promote, advance, fundraise for, so we have other people. But I never wanted, I was shy actually. I don't know, people find that hard to believe, but nonetheless. So when the opportunity came along, people were surprised. A woman who was a member of Congress at the time took ill. She said, I don't want to run again, but I want you to run in my place. I said, why would you even think that? I've never, ever shown any inclination to run. She said, well, you know the policy, that's why you're involved in politics. I think, she said, this is where you can reach your heights. She said, that was her term, like she'd say, so-and-so has reached their heights, they just don't know it yet, but it's right here. You can reach your heights up here. And so it was a question of the guys, who said she could run? Like my fire, why don't you? I'm waiting till you tell me what I can do. So you can't wait for that. Then, years I'm in there, I love the issues, I love appropriations, intelligence. I had the greatest committees, and then they came to me, boom, you should run for leadership. So I'm here for policy, I'm not here, and then come here for that, this, that, no, you have to run. What changed my view of it, just want you all to know, because you be ready for when your opportunity comes along, is that I got tired of losing. We lost in 94, 96, 98. 2000 was coming up, and I thought, well, I'm going to show them how to win, because I was
That's what you did.
I knew how to win elections. That's how we grew our women. So many women in the Congress. I take some credit and responsibility for that in the paper.
I think you get a little credit.
Yeah. So other things, Emily Smith's out there, there are other outside groups, so many, NARAL, Planned Parenthood, all kinds of organizations giving women the confidence to run. We were doing the politics of it. So anyway, I said to them, we needed 7 seats to win the House, 2000. I said to them, you can count on more than half of them from California, because I am taking charge of California. And before I was just raising money for them, but had no say. And I was like, no, I think I will take this responsibility. Election happens, 2000. In California, there were 26 Democrats, 26 Republicans. That night, we won 5 seats, 31 Democrats, 21 Republicans. I don't know if you can talk politics here, but you invited me, what do you expect? 31, 21. So I thought we had won Congress, now we just picked up 10 seats. They lost in the rest of the country. So that's when the members said, you gotta run for leadership. So because I had gotten tired of it, so then I started to run for leadership, and guess what the guy said? Who said she could run? I mean, this is in this century. When I'm talking about ancient, this is in this century. And then you know what they say? He said, well, they said the women think that Nancy would be good. And I said, I don't want anybody voting for me because I'm a woman, but I don't want anybody voting against me because I'm a woman. I'm just gonna get this job done. I'm tired of losing. You wanna win? Here we are. So, so they said, well, the women think it would be a good idea to have a woman in the leadership. It wasn't even the top job. We're talking about whip now, the third. So they said, well, why don't the women just write down on a piece of paper some of the things they like done around here, and we'll do it. Poor babies.
No.
Poor babies. Oh my God. They said, you know, we have a pecking order here, and people have been waiting their turn to run for leadership. Oh, really? Well, we've been waiting over 200 years, okay? We're over, guys.
Yeah.
It's so important for you all to consider your role in making democracy more democratic by making it more women and diverse, just plain more diverse.
And you're talking about why representation matters so much. I mean, keep telling me why do you think gender parity in our democracy is so crucial? And talk about what you're still doing to increase representation for women, for LGBTQ plus people, for people of color in Congress today.
Yes, well, the diversity, inclusiveness, more participation, it's necessary. And speaking just of women, nothing is more wholesome or better for politics or government than the increased participation of women. And you can really apply that to diversity as well, LGBTQ and all that. So, but here's the thing, we have a responsibility to the future. We know it will be made better by increased participation of women. You have to think personally about your own responsibility in that regard. And I always say, when they say, what advice do you give? First of all, the best advice I ever received was, be yourself. The true authenticity of you. Nobody like you in the history of the whole world like you. Your individuality, whether it's your upbringing, your education, your experience, your values, just about you. And you know, in a family, I have 5 kids, they're as different as can be going on. What is it that makes you drawn to any public role? Authenticity of you. Be ready. I had no idea I was going to be running for Congress. None. I can talk about that more in a minute if you wish. Be ready. You never know when the opportunity, wherever it is, on the steps for it may come along. Be ready by being yourself, taking inventory of the greatness of you. Know the power of you. Know your power. I always think, know your power. And again, you have that confidence of it all. There's nobody like you can do what you can do. The individuality is that sincerity comes through in a campaign, because you should show your vision of what you want the country to be. You can show your knowledge of any of the subjects that drive your engine. You can show your strategic thinking about how you will get things done. But people think, okay, well, that compares this. But when you show them what's in your heart, why you care, what is authentic about that, that empowers all the intellectual aspects of it.
Well, I want to ask, we are going to talk about politics. I want to talk about electoral politics. And you mentioned how it can be scary. Some women are worried about it being scary to run for office. But on the flip side, like you said, a woman elected to office can be a scary force, right? So when a woman is elected to office, she gains political power. She has the ability to affect change. I'm curious about how you have seen women in Congress, including yourself, using their power to stand up to those detractors, those people that say, what do you think, who do you think you are? What do you why is it your turn? How have you seen women using their power to create change?
Well, let me just say what our responsibility is in all of this first. And I'll say it by telling you this little story about when I first was the leader. Not the whip, that was my first job. When I won that, it was like, okay, she's on path. When I was leader, I went to the White House for my first meeting as the leader. And I had been to the White House so many times as an appropriator, intelligence matters, and so I didn't have any apprehension about the meeting whatsoever. Just so I'm going to a meeting at the White House. That sounds casual, but you know. So I go to the meeting, the door closes behind me, and I realize that this is unlike any meeting I had ever been to before at the White House. In fact, it was unlike any meeting any woman had been to at the White House, because it wasn't a cabinet meeting while you're appointed by the president, there at the pleasure of the president. It was House, Senate, Democrat, Republican, President of the United States. I wasn't there at the pleasure of the president. I was there at the will of the House Democrats. So it's a different dynamic, shall we say. So I sit down, and President Bush was president at the time, George W., and he was as gracious as he always has been, lovely, welcoming me. You know, first time we had a woman at one of these meetings. I know we're going to hear some different things from Nancy. He's going on like that. And all of a sudden, in my chair, some of you have heard me tell this story before, I was squeezed in my chair like this. I couldn't figure what it was. I was just squeezed in. Then I realized it was Elizabeth Cady Sten, Lucretia Mott, Susan B. Anthony, Sojourner Truth, Alice Paul. They were all on that chair with me. And I could hear them say, "At last we have a seat at the table." And then they were gone, and my first thought was, we want more. We want more women, we want more diversity, we want all. But there I was, standing on their shoulders, and others were standing on mine, and our colleagues in Congress. So when I went there and became speaker, I knew I had to do this differently. I had to do it as a woman, just go, and just differently. And my first order of the day was diversity, to tell the chairs it's different now, we're gonna have more women, we're gonna have more, whether it's in committee assignments or in staffing, high-level staffing, all the face of Congress is going to be different. That was my first meeting with what they called at the time, the old bulls. So they understood, and I had the gavel, so, and that makes a big difference, having the gavel. So I put women in every position that I had the authority to do. Some of it is seniority and some is appointed. Rules, Louise Slaughter of New York, ethics, Stephanie Tubbs-Jones of Ohio, Melinda McDonald of California in the Ethics Committee, in the House Administration Committee, every place. But some women then had risen to a place where we could elect them, like Lydia Velasquez had been there a while, so small business. So all of a sudden we had women presiding in numbers in different committees. Presiding is a very important thing. You're in charge in a committee. And when I had that gavel, it also meant we had over 100 other gavels in committees and subcommittees for women and people of color, LGBTQ, to have. And this was a difference in policy and prioritizing and the rest. It really made a tremendous difference as we went forward.
Yeah, how does that power look different? When it is women. We talk about what political power means in our politics. What does it mean to have women in those positions? How does that reshape how our political imaginations even around what power can be?
Well, it is, and it's, the thrust of your question is the essence of it all, because it is power. And that's why in elections, they know that women, this was one of the fights we had all through the 90s and the teens, they know that women have a reputation for high ethical values, right? Just the way it is, for women. That's the way it is. So what do they try to do in campaigns but to discredit that? So they go and say, oh, so-and-so said this and she took this contribution, that, so that they can undermine that. And that's scary to families because they put on TV and then your child comes home from school crying because somebody in the classroom said, I saw your mother was, around on TV and all that. So that's an impediment, an obstacle for that to happen. But my friends, it is so totally worth it because, to your point, what does that mean? It means Maxine Waters is the head of the Financial Services Committee. It means that I put women in places where Maxine, by dint of seniority, rose to that, but when it was time for that to happen, they said, oh, she's not going to be the chairman. And the guy said, no, she and Nancy are soul sisters. She's going to be the chairman. We worked together in California for a long time. But the point is that it's important for women to be there for healthcare and childcare and education and all that. But I wanted their faces to be the face of the Democrats in security and economics and all the rest, because they're all kitchen table issues.
Exactly.
And so when you see some of these women now in these powerful positions, I mean, even Nydia is still small business, that's not necessarily a woman's committee. And Julia Brownlee was just with her subcommittee on Veterans Affairs, and the women that I'm sure were in intelligence, armed services, homeland security, foreign affairs, like that, so that, and minorities too, so the face of our security was no longer just, forgive me, gentlemen, all white men. However,
We'll forget that in this room, for sure. For sure. But no, I mean, I think, and look, and we at the 19th certainly believe that all issues are women's issues, right? And, as long as you ask women about them and put women in a place where they can weigh in on these issues, right?
Maxine, imagine every person, every bank, every financial institution, because the committee is no longer just banking, it's now financial services. So all of that, they have to beat a path to her door.
Yeah. That wasn't what was the case before, like you said. Well, I want to ask you, I mean, are there women that are currently running for office that you are particularly excited about or interested in?
Well, yeah, I just met the other day, we had our, what we call a red to blue, which means these are women that we want to take the place of those who do not support our values in terms of a woman's right to choose and gun violence prevention and saving the planet and our democracy and the rest. And we have a majority of women in that array, and they're fabulous and they're diverse as well. And of course, last night in Maryland was that last night already?
Yeah.
Angela, I mean, that was a real triumph. Imagine an African-American woman in the Senate now, and then Lisa
Rochester, yes, potentially too.
Blunt from, Lisa Blunt Rochester from Delaware, she will be in the Senate at least two so far.
Which has never happened before, which would be
No.
really something.
And why not? I mean,
Well, yes, why not? We are also asking that question at the 19th. It's overdue, but you said we know you know how to count votes. You said publicly that you and the rest of the Democratic Party fully intend to win the election in 2024.
no question.
I'm curious, in your head though, what comes after the election? Use your wildest imagination.
Yeah.
What do you want the Democratic Party to accomplish for Americans over the next 4 years?
Well, I'm so glad you phrased it that way, because everything, even the 19th Amendment, we appreciate it for what it is. Where do we go from here?
Yes.
It's always about, savor, accept, appreciate that, but what's next? And as I say to my colleagues and colleagues-to-be, first of all, winning an election is a decision. We made a decision that we're going to take back the House. Now that means we have to make every decision in favor of taking back the House. And again, we taught the other side that one way to win the House is to elect more women. It had its own value to us, but it had a practical impact as well. So here's the thing, it's 3 M's. There are 3 no's and there are 3 M's. The 3 no's are no wasted time, no underutilized resources, and no regrets the day after the election that we could have done more. That's the 3 no's. The 3 M's are mobilization. You must own the ground at the grassroots level. Everything else is a conversation unless you get out the vote, and we fully are mobilized to do that. The next message, you can't run on empty, you have to have an inspiration, and that is, well, of course, a woman's right to choose will be part of that amendment on violence protection, the saving our democracy, saving our planet. The district, the members will conclude what is the most effective contrast. You're a member of, do you know what, 100 and, say it another way. How many Republicans do you think voted for women to have the right to contraception? Forget Roe v. Wade, there's none there. But how many women have a right to contraception? How many would you think? 8. 195 of them voted that women should not have a right to contraception. So we have some good contrast to make in the election. Mobilization, message, and the money. We want it to be largely grassroots money. We have legislation to reduce the role of big dark money in politics because we think that makes our system more democratic. To do that, the John Lewis bills, all of that to make democracy more democratic. And of course, women are essential to all of that. So we have last time, remember, they said you said in our head council, they said we're gonna have a red wave, remember the red?
We did not say that in the 1990s. I just want to remind everybody, we did not say that.
30 seats, I said, get out of here. They don't even know what they're talking about, making all this big money in New York or wherever they are at a microphone. They don't know what they're talking about. We're on the ground mobilizing. We're making the distinction. You're a member of Congress voted against a woman's right to choose, against gun violence prevention, against saving the planet, against our democracy and ours. Now, in the district, we had specific votes that we could mention. We lost 5 in New York, and that's the difference between that. Now we're down to like they're about 2 up or 3 up because we just lost a member.
So then how should that make us think about polls? I know you've got some thoughts about polls and like the role of polls in our elections. Because yeah, I mean, you are out there campaigning, you're seeing things that the polls oftentimes don't see.
Well, taken into consideration as a fact, this is a campaign. That's a war term. It's a campaign. And it's always close. That's why you don't have any regrets the next day that you might have done a little bit more. California, we just had an election. We have top 2 go into the general, whether it's 2 Democrats or 1 Democrat, 1 Republican. And where it's 2 Democrats, a very Democratic district, it was even. It was even. Then they had a recount, 1 up, 1 down, 1 up, 1 down. In the end, it's like 4 votes. So every late race could be some. We lost 1 race in Iowa by 6 votes in 2026 votes. So it's all in our power to win. Now, the polls are the polls, okay? But what happens on the ground is everything. And I'm, again, a political organizer, so I'm chair of the California Democratic Party. So that's why I'm always in favor of just get out the vote, and that's what counts. I know our time is coming to an end. I want you all to consider your own contribution to all of this, whether it's to run, whether it's to support someone else, but to take responsibility for the future because it belongs to you. There's nothing that excites me more than the increased participation of women. And I have been a terrible target of it all. People say to me, well, I would do it, but I could never take, as I said to you earlier. And I said, let me just tell you a prayer. I'll end with a prayer. You ready for prayer? A Presbyterian bishop in Africa posted this on the wall in a hospital there. And he says in this prayer that he's prayerful that one day when he goes to heaven and meets his Creator, happily so, his Creator will say, show me your wounds. And if I have no wounds, and I say, Lord, I have no wounds, he'll say, was nothing worth fighting for. This is all a fight. Those women, imagine, Seneca Falls, leaving home, doing what they, imagine the courage it took. And we have a responsibility to future generations, you at your generation, to future generations, to have the courage to make the decision to do what it takes, one good day in front of another, no regrets the day after the election, own the ground, mobilize the troops, take back the country, and let's hope that we can turn this into something much more bipartisan. I want it to be as unifying as it can be. Unfortunately, we have nobody with us on the other side who wants right to choose, unfortunately, but hopefully that can change and we can get that back with appropriate medicine. But we're going to win the White House. Hopefully we'll take back the Senate enough to get rid of the filibuster so we can pass Roe v. Wade right away first day. And sort of take it to the bank. We're going to win the House. Hakeem Jeffries will be the next speaker.
That you've been in this fight and you continue to be a happy warrior. Thank you so much. There are so many more questions that I would like to ask you, but obviously we have run out of time. Time flies when you are talking about democracy and women's representation in this country. So thank you so much for speaking with us today, Speaker Emerita Pelosi.